Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Club ADCN, welcome to Facebook, Instagram, the live stream over lunch for this year's jury talks, during which we reflect on the Dutch Creativity Awards 2020. Thank you for joining, thank you for taking the opportunity to learn from the jury's feedback, insights and ideas. And on the agenda today is design. So together with three design leaders, we'll review some of the work that was entered, some of the work that was nominated and won. We'd love to congratulate all the nominees and winners and thank all the entrants for participating this year. But back to the session for today. We got three speakers, Lauren, Liza and Alex, who will share with you insights from the discussions in all the jury sessions. So let's start with Lauren van der Kolk. She's design director at Tate, and she was a member of the product and packaging design jury for this year. And together with us, she'll reflect on her insights and takeaways from that session. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So please tell us a little bit about yourself. You're the design director at Tate.
Yes, I am.
What does that role
What does it mean?
Yeah.
Well, Tate recently turned 7 years old, so we're actually a fresh young company. And I joined 6 years ago as a senior designer and built the design team, and now are responsible for the product and the packaging from Tate. So overseeing all the designs of the frames, of course, of the eyewear. It's spectacles and sunnies, but also on the packaging and all the additional products that we create. So leading and guiding creatives to get the best out of the best for less. So it's quite a ride. We grew quite rapidly, but it's very interesting still.
Nice. And just for a company where design is at the heart of the product and therefore the business.
Yeah.
How do you build that design culture within the company, and how do you sustain a culture of design and creativity?
Well, when we started Tate, one of the major things that we really focused on was especially the customer, of course. So how does a customer connects with a brand? How does it buys? How does it shop? How does it really wear the frames and spectacles? So having a vision on what does design mean for a consumer, rather than how could we brand a cool product, is a change in the industry, especially in the eyewear industry, which was quite a boring industry, to be honest. So challenging our people at headquarters, and not only the designers, but also everybody from legal to HR to the customer service, especially, of course, to really tick themselves with being creative in solving answers and solving solutions to design something. And from Tate as a company, what I think is really interesting is that nobody, except for our opticians, of course, have ever worked before in eyewear. So everything what we did and created was in question mark. But that is flowing creativity everywhere, of course, and designing stuff what you have never designed before it's a huge challenge, but very inspiring to do as well.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thanks again for being a jury member for this year.
Thank you very much.
We'd love to hear from you, your takeaways from the discussions with the juries, the considerations that we had in judging the work. What have you been looking for as a jury in the work? What does great product design or creativity in product and packaging design mean to you guys? We're curious to learn, and fire away.
Thank you so much. Well, this year's jury session was slightly different because for us, of course, as product and packaging, it's sometimes essential to really feel and see the product. And for us, it was quite hard doing it and reviewing it online. So one of the major takeaways that we saw within the jury sessions was that you really need to focus on the details. But it's really important as well on how the consumer really unwrap and unpack their product. So the packaging itself needs to be connected with a brand more specifically nowadays, especially now e-commerce is so important, and physical stores were closed for such a long time, of course. The packaging and the wrapping of the product and the product itself need to be enlightened even more and more detailed. So one of the things that we found out as well is that sometimes the story behind the product is really good, or the story on where it's based for, or even the brief written by the agency to create something. But then the actual product had the lack of the quality of the written brief by details. And for example, one of the nominees and one of the winners was a packaging from the inflatables from the HEMA, which in the first viewings and nominations sessions maybe didn't really reach the marks of being a wow factor packaging, and we maybe skipped quite quickly towards the others. But then in the session, one of my jury members pointed out as well, like that the little impact they could create by just moving a little bit of the details, and especially within the restrictions of a major company as the HEMA, actually lifted up the packaging and made it even more daring and more inspiring. So that also was rewarded, of course, with a lamp. Secondary transparency is very important. Not only the physical transparency, what we saw, so not only transparency in the product or in the packaging and the casing, so you actually can see and feel the product, but also the transparency in communication. There's a lot of words on packaging currently. A lot of words which is not really nicely explained. People smash branding terms on packaging and try to explain what their culture is on just a very tiny piece of paper. So having a critical review on that would be very nice as well, but also being transparent on why you do the stuff and really explaining. Again, because of the e-commerce is growing so rapidly, you really need that space as well to physically see the brand on the product. But also transparency and sustainability, because what we see currently is sustainability is of course on the horizon of being the new rock star or the new bingo word of every brand. And I think it's very important, especially for the innovation and the future, to tickle your agencies, but also the brands that you're working for, especially in the agency world, to really deep dive in sustainability materials, because sustainability doesn't need to be ugly at all, or isn't boring. It has to do with a lot of innovations, and currently there are so many nice fabrics or textures or materials that you can work with. The only thing is that it's mostly, unfortunately, still more expensive, or it's not matching with the formulas of how you branded your materials. Yeah. But I really think that going into sustainability is the new future, and I would like to dare as well for the next sessions and the next award shows to really deep dive in entering those products who are thriving by sustainable matters and materials, because there's so much out there that I didn't see, unfortunately, yet participating in this jury session. So one of the things that I brought as well as inspiration is from Hackles. It's a brand who actually makes skin products, but this is actually their packaging, what they're sending. So their total packaging is reusable, so it's made by them, especially for them as well. So you have a wrapping with all the information regarding what it is and how you can use it, but it's paper with flower seeds in it. So when you put it in the ground, there actually flowers will come out of it. And besides that, this is actually pressed material which has fungus in it. So if you water it, fungus will grow out of it. And then inside you will find a nicely product, still in glass because you can refill it as well. So this for me is the opposite, of course, like this is going as wild as possible because not everyone is really interested in the fiber of the material, but there's so much more in between. On sustainable materials and the things on how you could use it. So I think that a new generation especially is more seeking and looking into this kind of products, and if we all are looking into it and daring our suppliers, the price will drop down as well. So I hope to see more of this, especially, for sure.
Nice, thank you so much. And what kind of mindset do you think is needed to accelerate this type of work? For people to explore new materials, to play around with them, experiment. What would you advise to designers, design studios, or even brand managers who manage all of these products? Yeah. What needs to be done to more urgently create this type of work? Yeah. First of all, baby steps. Nothing is easy to change totally dramatically. No agency will accept that, no brand will accept that you throw in fungus things towards the dairy industry, for example. That's impossible to work with. So yes, there are industry standards for certain packagings and products, but baby steps
is something that we can implement to get there. And especially looking in the smaller details again, so the detail work on closing the loop, producing it differently, shipping it differently already is sustainable. So it's not only the physical product, but also on how you transport or making it more interesting, of course. But only if you already look into using less colorage, less ink, less nice material like plastic wrappings or stuff like that, which you can replace with stuff that is less harmful for the world, is already a huge step, because the majority of products that I have seen passing in the jury as well are voluminous. So having, for example, one of the other winners in our category was a packaging made for sweet tomato candies, but it was enlightened by having another purpose to play for kids with. So you could play Jenga kind of games with it. It has an opening, it had a fun part into it. So it's not only the wrapping of the better veggies for the children, but it's also something to tickle the children to play and actively do something else with it and keep it as a product. So that's also something that makes it more interesting, to really push yourself and try to rework on what the standards of the industry are.
Yeah. And what do you do with your team at a daily or weekly basis to understand what these new standards are and how to get there? So where do you find inspiration to get to this level?
Yeah, we have a very close relation with our suppliers ourselves. So for example, with the frames, so the eyewear, we go even on the product. So we're not only talking to our own suppliers, but also to the core material suppliers, so the raw granulates that are made for the acetate, which is made for the frames, to really invest on like what can we change to help the industry become better. But as inspiration, looking around, go shopping, go to even interior design. They are quite far already on using an architecture as well, and using more sustainable materials and seeing how we can reflect, but also reviewing our own unboxing experience currently, because also we can do so much better in so many facets of the world and in the materials that we use, especially in designing our stores, for example, renewing our own core product, making granulate out of it, which you can use for making shelves and bars or stools or whatever with it. But it's an insanely challenge. We have an amazing sustainability manager who is challenging it all. But it's a different mindset, and especially I would also advise all the specialists in the industry, look to the exams of the universities right now. It's exam period times. The exams won't be in an exposition, of course. It will all be online, so everything is visible. But the students are so much more into the innovation part, so the materials are there. You just need to pick it up and highlight, of course, the student who made it. But if you just incorporate the two of them, there's still so much to do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for
having me again.
Sharing all the feedback, and we love to see you back at the club soon. Thanks again for judging, also to all your fellow jury members, and we hope for more sustainable, innovative design next year.
I hope so. I'm looking forward.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Laura.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So up next, we'll have a discussion on motion design with Liza Enebeis. Liza is creative director at Studio Dumbar, based in Rotterdam. She was one of the winners for this year's Brand and Spatial Design Awards with the demo project Design in Motion. More about that later.
Can you hear me?
She also happens to be a board member at ADCN, serving as our co-president. So we're excited she's here. She's actually joining from a car. So live from The Hague and Rotterdam. And we'd love to hear from Liza about her perspectives on the development of motion design, and in particular about all the background stories to the demo project. I'll quickly use these
hello, can you hear me?
earplugs. Yes, we can hear you.
oops, why does this not work? Well, it started with actually the idea of starting the world's largest motion design festival. And why we did that was because we've seen a lot of great motion from around the world. We saw it on our phones, mainly on Instagram, but it was not really shared with a bigger public. It was basically only shared with more designers. And we wanted to share this experience with a wider public. So we wanted also to invite all these designers and show their work in Amsterdam Central Station. And that's how we also started collaborating with Exterior Media, who owned all the screens on Amsterdam Central Station. And we started this collaboration, and they said, yes, why don't you show this work in this space? It meant that we could take over all 80 screens for video walls for 24 hours, and the possibility to show it to 250,000 visitors, which was really, really an unbelievable amount of people, and more than what we ever hoped for. And so it became Demo. We named the festival Demo, Design in Motion. We designed the brand for it, obviously, so that it would exist. And there was a website where everything that was actually on the website, or the brand itself, everything moves. So if you see it, if you go online now, it's still there. Everything that you see on this site moves. We invited a few key people, and alongside that, we had a big call for action to invite more people from all over the world. And by a great surprise, we received 2,700 submissions, 900 designers, and from 70 countries. And then here you can see just the breadth of how far, what reach it had, and how many people we were bringing from all over the world. And for the next few examples, what we did was make a selection of 400 pieces, and we showcased those 400 pieces in the in Central Station for those 24 hours. And I can show you a few highlights, personal favorites, but I think also were key pieces of what was motion design, or what is motion design at the end of 2019. There was a section that we called "Is This Real?" And here you see the work for More and More, and this is all complete. This is all CGI, so it is actually completely fake, or if you would like to call it like that. The work of Pina Viola, where they explored AI and create these new kind of images, which is, I think, is also now part of the future of what we are also doing when it comes to exploring visual languages, and how do we use AI in the work we're doing. This is not real was also an area. And this work looks very, very much hand-drawn, but it's actually all coded. It's using processing to develop this. Then there was site-specific work. So this is work that was, like the name says, was specifically designed for Central Station. Actually, a project that at Studio Dumbar we had developed earlier in the year, but showcased it again at Demo. This project from Tate, which I thought was really brilliant, and a funny, well, not funny, but an anecdote was we had programmed it so that it could also show on the platforms. But last minute, we were all advised by the ENS that this could be very confusing also for train drivers if you're like driving into the train station and having these doors opening on the track. So we quickly had to rethink of where to place this particular piece. So it only appeared actually on within the station hall. There were projects, few that were what we call the message, and I think this is a really nice piece from Tonic that plays with the idea of fake and real. So you have this, it keeps switching. From Hansje van Halem and Jurjan Hoos, and for me it just appealed to me, this phrase, the yes, why not? And I think that was also the whole spirit of the demo festival. Like, what shall we do this? And then think of it, and in the end is yes, why not? Let's organize this festival. Then there is a what I call in motion design the Swiss MAFIA, and I'll show you a couple of examples. There is a group of Swiss people that I think they do a lot of work, typography based, and I think really had a big influence on motion design as we see it now, when it comes to the way we use typography. And here the example of Xavier, and Xavier was also one of the curators of the festival, and this work became really well known, and it's been actually copied several times. Abstract work, the work of Plumeur, and I think this is a beautiful piece, especially when we showed it during the last hours, and I think this was a closing piece where it took over every single screen at the station, and it was like the set, like almost the end of the evening, like the sun setting. And Zach Lieberman, and I think he's one of the most known designers in the group when it comes to motion. And of course there was a selection that we like to say work that made us smile, of Dirk Coy, that really plays with this the juxtaposition of like real emotion, the parameters of the screen. The scroll bars that we're so familiar with. And again, so this is, I think, is quite funny, and how they consider the screen and what they use it. So on the day itself, when if you were there, I'm not sure. Basically, this is how the station looked like. These are with the bigger screens, and then screens overall. And it was really an exceptional, I think, an exceptional day. There was just, and we're so much used to looking at advertising in these screens, and sometimes we pay little attention, and suddenly what we noticed were people were just standing there and looking at the work that was displayed. And for me, this is this image to end with really just said everything. Like in a station where millions of people or thousands of people go by, that they could just, instead of running to go to their train, they just stood there and they looked at the screens. And it also, I think, says a lot on what is, what is out of home, and how can we use it in a different way? How can it be more effective? And what does this mean in the city landscape? So I think this was also marked a time, at least for us, to reconsider how we put our messages out there, and also in a respectful way. Like it is, it's also our responsibility of how we communicate in our general surroundings. So this is where we are at the moment. I don't know if you have any.
A couple of questions about the project. So first of all, congratulations on the wicked curation of all this wonderful design work and art from across the world. What are your plans to take demo to the next level? So how can you scale this?
Well, ideally, we want, well, our first reaction after 2019, we thought, never will we ever do this again, organize something like this. But of course, after a week when we recovered, we thought, oh, we need to do this again. This really meant a lot for everyone involved. And ideally this year we wanted to reorganize it, but obviously having a festival at this point in time is not, wouldn't be very responsible for us. So we're hoping that in 2021 we can organize a festival like this again, whether it is in the Netherlands or abroad. Yeah, that we need to see. And of course, as partners with Exterior Media, because, yeah.
Yeah. So, one more question. You also mentioned the responsibility that we have as brands, advertisers, creative studios, agencies, with our presence in the public space, in the public domain. So my question is, learning from this project, but also all the kinds of art projects that we now see during the coronavirus lockdown, during Black Lives Matter, we see all kinds of art making statements on the street with beautiful designs, beautiful art. What can we do with the brand creative community to collaborate better between brands and motion designers to create this kind of work and to make actual also the advertising worth looking at or worth missing your train for?
Yeah, for one, I mean, I think we need to take responsibility on how we communicate and what we're communicating. We are, I think the generation that's born now is 100% digital anyway, so we understand digital. We do not, and what I see at the moment, people are trying to communicate on digital, are still trying to communicate in a very, in an old-fashioned way. It sort of tries to say everything in one go. I think you're playing with time and storytelling that is important. But when it comes to art or if it's art, I mean, or a stronger message, I think we need to give room to that, and we need to, and as communicators, be responsible for what we're communicating, and companies or brands should stand, I hope so, can stand behind it. Sometimes you have to maybe put aside always trying to sell you this and X and Y, and look at the space that you're in. I don't need every day to look at something to buy a shoe or something. You know, this is not the only place. We're in a city, and we're living together. It doesn't always it needs to be about selling. You can also, it can be about poetry. It can be other ways than just 100% sell.
Yeah, great. Is that also what you look for in young design talent? So the ethics, the vision to advertise actually by not advertising. Is that a skill that collectively we should actively develop?
Yeah, and I think what you see with talent, young designers now, they are a lot. I mean, everybody, of course, we all cared, and but we see that young talent is a lot more socially responsible, and they dare to speak up and not to be afraid, and I think that is really important for a designer, because we are communicators and we have the best tools to do that with. And I'm not saying everybody has to be politically involved, but just take care of how you say it and how you do it, and how you can together work together, and it's not only about you isolated on your own. It's really together that we have to make changes.
Yeah, wonderful. My final question, I think together with your team at Dumbar and all your partners like Exterior Media, you've been working really hard to get this off the ground in quite limited time, within a year or so. What has been your best personal learning from doing this project?
Personal learning, yeah. You need to keep going and believe in it, believe in what you're doing, and yeah, and keep going, and definitely togetherness. Like you kind of, it's not not on your own thing. It's together with your team to go for it, and not to be scared to ask. You know, like if we never had talked to Exterior Media and had this crazy idea, then this would never happen. So just it doesn't matter. I mean, and I think that's also for young talent. Just don't be afraid. There's nothing to lose. Just ask.
Yeah.
Because you never know what will happen, or go for it. You just, yeah, everything is possible.
All right, thank you so much, Liza, for all your advice and wisdom. Congratulations again on winning the Golden Lamp in design. And yeah, we look forward to seeing more from demo and motion design in this year and next year to come. So thanks for joining us here at Club ADCN. We'll now talk to our third guest for today. He's a member of the Brand and Spatial Design Jury. He's a design leader who's worked across many countries, continents, including Australia, London, and now he's been based in Amsterdam for a while. So please welcome the Creative Director of Design Bridge Amsterdam, Alex Normanton.
That's an impressive intro.
Well, it's an impressive CV you build up, and we were curious to learn a little bit more about yourself because you've been active in multiple types of design. So we're curious to learn which design project or experience has shaped you as a designer mostly?
Yeah, I think this is a really big question. To put it down on one project is really tough. I kind of become very philosophical in my old age. I know I only look 24, but I think every experience shapes you. I think every part of your career, from my start out days in Saatchi and Saatchi advertising, and my career took a very different slant to what I thought I would be doing. I thought I'd be working in a design, branding, communications company from the start of my career. But I think those principles of Saatchi and Saatchi, nothing is impossible, sticks with you for the rest of your career. And I think even now, you know, leading creative teams and designers, that tenacity to break through, keep going, nothing is impossible, like don't put barriers in the way, think a bit more positive, shapes you. Spent a long time in London with that ethos. Had the fortunate pleasure of relocating to Saatchi and Saatchi Design at the time, working in the Rocks, which was phenomenal. Working with very talented people, Kevin Finn, Christopher Doyle, Julian, Mel Hewish, and just learning about the power of a simple idea that can stretch across multiple platforms, but also the power of a simple idea in a beautiful graphic design way. I think gives you a solid foundation for thinking about brand in a more puristic way, because the world has sped up, got more complicated. But in essence, what I'm seeing is a return to simplicity, a return to craft, celebrating distinctive assets, being brave with color. So I think everything shapes you. I made the move from London to Amsterdam about 3 years ago. And that for me was just about working in a different culture and environment that I'd never worked in before, applying my principles of design thinking to sound, working with massive music. And I guess you can't change your DNA, really. Like for me, I missed the visual expression, the verbal expression, but actually branding is wide open. You know, we're seeing beautiful design in motion. We're seeing sound play a role in brand. We're seeing visual expression, verbal expression. Like, how far do you want to take this? And that's what inspires me. Just the challenge of we're in a new era. And I heard a term the other day actually, which was we're in a new golden era for design. And there aren't any rules anymore, if there were. And I think that's very exciting.
Thank you. So, looking at how you've been judging the brand spatial design categories, which essentially is about brand identities and the manifestations of their brand identity across all kinds of platforms, media, in space, obviously in spatial design, there's environmental. So what have you been looking for as a jury at the core of the work? What makes a great identity? What are the elements, ingredients as a jury that you were looking for?
Yeah, I think, I mean, just to say there was some fabulous work and a real breadth of work. But I think what's really immediate is what is it that cuts through the noise really quickly. And I kind of liken it to the old 3-second rule of traditional advertising, which does it grab you? But I think that time frame is a lot shorter now. So does it grab you? Does it communicate? Do you instinctively feel something? Do you get the idea? You know, and I think identity is a very interesting. Well, it's a discipline, and there's definitely different ways of expressing identity. You know, from a very simple logo type, what does that communicate? The choice of typeface, what are you representing in that choice? Mm-hmm. Through to an idea within an identity, but then how is that identity expressed and how does it come to life? And I think for me it's always about something that grabs you, what is the idea, and then how does it travel, and what are the legs it has across different touch points, different channels. And for me, that's a really exciting space to be in. But it immediately helps you funnel down on what's good and what's great. And that's the differentiating factor there.
So let's discuss a couple of projects that you've chosen for this session, that were nominated, that were winning, and why it excited the jury, and what you think as designers we can take away from those projects. So one of the first was Amstel Dock.
Yeah.
Visual identity created by VBAT.
Yeah. I mean, this project.
Why did it win?
I think for me, this project has gone on to have global recognition consistently across multiple award shows. But I think what's really nice about judging work in your own city is that it resonates so much more in a way because you have the context of that project. I mean, I cycle past this building every day. I was observing the development of that building literally as it was being built. And I think this one's really interesting because it's so playful, graphic-led, clean, communicates, is fun. It's so flexible due to the nature of that variable type. But you kind of don't expect it as well. For kind of branding a WPP building, like you could quite easily go down the more corporate route. But what I personally love about this is that it plays with that already a stereotype and flips it on its head. And I think this is a really interesting project, which did actually cause quite a mildly heated discussion. Partly for the fact of, does it really embody the building? And I think for me it does. I mean, you can see it in that 3-dimensional extrusion. It perfectly embodies the building. Some jurors likened it to be, is it too simplistic just in its form of a mark? And I think that for me is like, don't just view the mark, because that for me is like one ingredient within an identity system, which in turn creates a brand. So you should view it as a whole and don't zoom in on a minutiae thing. So this for me, I personally love it. I think it's really flexible, smart, innovative use of technology. But when you see it in context, in locality, and you see it on different communications channels, it connects and it's cohesive.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a pleasure to present it, especially knowing the creative director of the project as well. So.
Nice, thanks. So the next project was created by Tate, creative agency, for Westergas, where we're actually broadcasting from as we speak. So why was this chosen as a winner of a silver lamp?
Yeah, I mean, this just touches you in a beautiful way. It's kind of letting the visual world around this identity breathe, but the identity is kind of a framework for letting that content come to life. And it reminds me of so many iconic
Graphics.
I had a really quick cycle here, so yeah, iconic graphic designers, Paul Rand's, you know, the passing of the guy who's just passed away as well in the States.
Milton Glaser.
Yeah, Milton Glaser. So it's kind of that simplistic, idea-driven, bold, mixed media approach to design, which, if you think of the location that we're sat in, is that vibrancy, different disciplines that represent these flavors of a location. And I think how it flexes and breathes, how it uses illustration, photography is really stunning, but also that love of craft and print and textural, and you pick something up and you smell the print, which is a bit OCD of me, but I love the smell of print.
Yeah.
But it expresses something that you're emotionally attached to.
Yeah. Wonderful. The next project was done by Total Design for Stichting Lezen en Schrijven. What's your feedback to this project?
Yeah, again, this kind of did divide the jury in a way. We thought there was something beautiful about the iconography, the icon of that identity, the eye to the writing of the pencil, simple. It connects. I guess the thing that we found with this one was, in a way, even just seeing the split screen, it feels like there's almost two brands that are kind of going on. The expression of the brand is really interesting, and it needs to be simplistic because you're communicating to people who are struggling with reading and writing. So I get it from that perspective, but from a brand continuity perspective, apart from the colorways and maybe the typography, it feels like the style of illustration is kind of slightly, it could be better integrated.
Better fitted.
Yeah. But I think also just going deeper into that project, see how it comes to life online, there's then a disconnect. So it felt a little bit like it was a concept that was realized and the vision was bought, but it never really turned into an application. And we can't judge that properly because maybe they're going to launch it in the next month.
Yeah.
But I think context helps frame your view on an identity system.
Clear? All right. A few more questions. So first of all, based on the jury discussions, what do you think are the key design skills that as a community, as a collective, we should be developing, that should be high on the agenda to learn?
I think working in the creative industry is that you're always on, you're always learning. Viewing it through the lens of now and whatever the new normal is for creativity, I think the skills would be flexibility, more organic and agile ways of working. And agile, I don't mean no money and no time. I mean smarter ways of being agile, smarter ways of collaboration. I think the world's opened up with the advantages of Team and Zoom, but actually how do you create collaboration within a physical space and a digital space?
Yeah.
Tenacity to never settle, be restless in your pursuit for the idea, and keep being brave. Like, be bold. Like, you might surprise yourself, and more overtly, you might surprise your clients. And that's what I love, when a client's like, whoa, that's really unexpected, but in a good way. Like, everyone's trying to find their voice, so why be Magnolia?
Right, thank you. So we'd like to wrap up this session with 2 small examples of international design projects that you selected that you think might inspire the Dutch creative community to set new standards and benchmarks. So the first one's actually the new visual identity and even the packaging product design for Kolk, created by Lander.
Yeah.
Why did you choose this?
I actually brought physical ones in as well.
Great.
I feel like I'm on Blue Peter, for those British watchers out there. Yeah, I think for me, like, this packaging, albeit packaging brand project, it kind of holds principles for what I would consider really well considered design. It's simple. It really brings to life their iconic visual assets. So that Kellogg's brand mark, but they've flexed that so it wraps around the side, which is really playful. It really stands out on shelf because it's so simple. If you work, which I do within the packaging brands discipline, to get to this point of simplicity with an idea and deliver all the nutrition information is quite a task. So I applaud Lando for the relentless pursuit of simplicity and also craft. But it also just, I don't know what it is about this paper, but it feels good when you pick it up. And I like the playfulness of the iconography, but even just like the barcode, like they've played with the format. And so I think as a brand system, and by the way, it also tastes good. As a brand system, it just feels iconic, but also connects and takes you back to when you first discovered that as a breakfast cereal. Yeah. And that's what I like. It's emotional. It connects to people. Yeah. But you want to buy it. Like, it looks amazing. I just want these on my shelf at home.
At home, yeah, as an object.
To not eat.
Yeah. All right, the final piece of inspiration and project was created by Paula Schur at Pentagram, New York. Paula is also in the Netflix series about creativity and design called Abstract. So we'd love to encourage you to watch that particular episode. Mm-hmm. So what about this project?
Yeah, I mean, again, I love anything from Paula. What I love about it is just, as I mentioned, in a way you can, if you look at the color blocks within this work and took the type off it, it's that simplicity of color that I'm talking about that actually, from a graphic design and brand perspective, you can see is influencing culture. And you know, the Kellogg's approach is that color blocking system, which is beautiful. But actually, I think to encapsulate an idea within an identity that becomes a mark, but then you weave it into communication, is a really simple thought, but actually it works and it's really relevant. So I think this approach to identity not just being a logo type or an idea within a logo type, actually the visual language that's put around this as a brand is really central to everything they're about. And I know that for me, just working in a territory where you want to give something back comes through in the work, but also it's just very pared back. And I think it goes back to those principles of keep it simple, stupid, you know, the KISS principle. I think to hold on to that mantra within the complexity of business, brands, I really admire. So I think it stands out because of that, but then you connect with it because of the headlines and the charm of the tone, but also the visual aspect of it. And it's, two color. I mean, it's powerful.
Very simple and powerful, yeah. All right, Alex, thank you so much for being part of the jury, being here today with us to share your perspectives on the state and future of design. So we'll take that forward for the work to come. I'd like to thank Lauren and Liza and the team here for this broadcast. We'll be back tomorrow with the craft sessions. Speakers will include Vincent at Ambassadors Animation and Design Studio, one of the winners, Basha de Bruin, a film director, who will share feedback from the film craft jury in film direction, cinematography, the Young Directors Award, editing, and much more to come. If you have any questions to the juries, if you want feedback to your work, please send it to awards@adcn.nl, and we'll do our best to get the feedback and transfer it back to any entrant, anybody who's curious to learn. So thank you so much for watching this episode, and hope to see you tomorrow at 12:30 for another lunch session. Goodbye.